Hello, everyone. I'm Suman Ghosh, Executive Director at the Indo-American Arts Council. We are running our literary festival, our annual literary festival, with 32 authors and poets this year. And today we bring you yet another fascinating session. Joining us today is Suman Ghosh, a professor of economics at the Florida Atlantic University with a PhD in economics from Cornell. He is a national award-winning filmmaker with many great films to his credit. I first met him when he came with his documentary on Amartya Sen, the argumentative Indian, which screened at the New York Indian Film Festival, which we also run. In Soumitra Chatterjee, A Filmmaker Remembers, Suman goes down memory lane to provide a fascinating insight into his interactions with the actor. Welcome, Mr. Suman Ghosh, to the Literary Festival.
Thank you so much.
Joining him today and talking with him on this subject is Aseem Chhabra, who is the film director, the festival director and the curator at the New York Indian Film Festival. Aseem is also a writer in New York City who writes on a variety of topics, including arts, entertainment, social and political issues. He has been published in the New York Times, Boston Globe, Courier Journal, Time Out, New York, and many more. He's also been interviewed on film and popular culture by several outlets such as ABC, CNN, Reuters, Associated Press, and more. Welcome, Aseem.
Hi, Suman. Thank you. And hello, Suman. So I have two Sumans here. So...
How often does that happen?
I know. It's wonderful.
Good to see you both. I mean, this is a subject which I'm interested in hearing more, and I'm sure the book has got many, many interesting stories to tell. I look forward to hearing your conversation, of course, reading the book. But for now, I leave it to both of you to take the conversation forward.
And before you leave, Suman, for now, I just wanted to say my gratitude to Indo-American Arts Council, because I think 15 years back when I made my first film, it was called Podokep. It was Footsteps in English. And the first American screening, so it was world premiered at Vancouver Film Festival, but the first American screening was at IAAC. When Arun was there, Arun Shivdashani. Aseem, you joined a bit later.
I think.
Yeah. But that also had Soumitra Chatterjee in the lead role, for which he got the national award ultimately. Then I didn't know. So this was the second screening of the movie happened at IAAC. And ever since, of course, almost all my films have been shown there. So it's a special honor that my first literary festival now is at IAAC. So thank you, all of you guys, very much.
Yeah. That's wonderful to hear, and we're really grateful for people like who you support us and who we are part of. There's been a long working relationship. So always so thankful to that.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, Aseem, we'll see you later.
All right, see you later. Yes. Suman, I didn't know that we had shown your first film, because I was actually in the programming committee of the festival even then, but I probably was not watching, because my first experience of showing your film at New York Indian Film Festival was with Peace Haven.
Right. Peace Haven and Kadambari was in the same year. Actually.
It's the same year, because I remember Kadambari also played it. And I'm really touched that you actually mention our festival in the book also, that Peace Haven showed at the festival.
That's right.
And so we showed Peace Haven, we showed Kadambari, we showed Argumentative Indian
and Bose family, Bose Parivar,
and Searching for Happiness. So this is your this is almost your home. So welcome. So thinking about it, and I read the book, and I really enjoyed the anecdotes and your description of Soumitra Chatterjee and his performances in not just in your films. I mean, you would at the end talk about his 10 other best non-Satyajit Ray films that you're recommending, and the conversations you had with him. I mean, I have to say, I have to be honest about it. I'm really, really envious that you got to know him so well. And I'll of course always be eternally grateful to you that because of you that I actually met him, although very briefly. I went to his home and managed to get a selfie, but he was not in the right frame of mind. But thank you. But as I said, I really envy it. But I think it's really fascinating. And I've been through that in my life also. When I think about when I was in my teens or something like that, and one was watching Amitabh Bachchan's films or Shah Rukh Khan's films, and who would have known that later in our life we would get to know them. And Amitabh Bachchan follows me on Twitter. But in your case, for instance, when you were a child, you were not watching too many of Soumitra Chatterjee films, right? I mean, you saw Sonar Kela. That's the first one.
That's right.
When did you start to see his other films? Going back the upper trilogy, Devi, Charulata.
So before I start saying that, since you mentioned that incident in Calcutta where you went and had a selfie with Soumitra Kaku, I think it was 2019 December.
No. January 2020.
January 2020, yeah, December,
Yeah,
January, that winter break. And he had his wife was unwell then, so he was not. But I really would have loved to have both of you have a conversation together, because I personally haven't seen anyone who knows and adores Satyajit Ray so much, outside the Bengal oeuvre. And I had told Soumitra Chatterjee of your seminal work of Satyajit Ray, E.T. and Spielberg, that made so much of sensation. So he was fascinated. So that was an opportunity missed, I think, because I was planning the next time when you come to Kolkata, I want an adda to happen with you and him. So that never happened. So anyway,
the pandemic happened and then he fell sick also. He got COVID. It's really sad. Yeah.
So, when we were young, as I write in the introduction of the book, we Bengali families are inculcated about Tagore, Satyajit Ray, Soumitra Chatterjee, of Uttam Kumar. And I was more of a rebellious child then. When something is inculcated. So, for example, I can, now say very honestly that my mother was a very big Rabindra Sangeet. She used to sing Rabindra Sangeet very well, and always in our house, Rabindra Sangeet was playing. And I somehow revolted against that. Why am I forced to doing something? So similarly, I remember even for Satyajit Ray, Pather Pachali was shown on television when, remember in 1980, there was a solar eclipse in India. And, in the afternoon, Doordarshan was showing Pather Pachali. We were like 7-8 years old, class 1 or 2, and we were forced to see Pather Pachali, and I didn't like it, to be very honest, because, but, we didn't have the courage to tell our parents that I didn't like Pather Pachali or I didn't like Rabindra Sangeet and things. Now, as I'm getting older, I'm probably cherishing much more and realizing. So as I write in the book also, that time, Mithun Chakravarti, Amitabh Bachchan, they were more of fascination for us. That sheer energy of, when Mithun comes on stage and does I Am a Disco Dancer, or Amitabh Bachchan, the dialogues in Diwar and all, those were much more enticing, though in front of our parents, we couldn't say that, we saw Disco Dancer or we saw Namakhalal or something like that. So I, out of revulsion because of parents' embargo about Hindi films and stuff, and Bengalis, I think, have a very, which I don't like it, to be very honest, criticizing my own culture, have certain parameters and boundaries for aesthetic culture and these kind of things, which I think, I revolted against. So, but Sonar Killa was a movie which was unlike a Pather Pachali or more of serious stuff, which our parents like spoon feeding us. So I remember we saw Sonar Killa when I was same age, like I was class 1 or 2 in standard 1 or 2, class 1 or 2 as it is called in India. And I just loved it. It was so fascinating, so engaging. And so that was the first Soumitra Chatterjee film I saw at a young age. And he was just that, the detective in Sonar Killa, a very handsome young man. And that was it. I never bothered about even the nuances, cinematic nuances. Of course, in class 1 and 2, how can you do that? And, that's why in the book, I mentioned in the very introduction about my daughters who are now 8 and 6 years old. When they were 2 years back, they saw Sonar Killa. And remember, these are American kids for all practical reasons. Me and my wife don't force anything that you have to be Indian, you have to speak Hindi or Bengali or whatever.
Right.
I just casually showed them Sonar Kella and just they loved it. They can understand Bengali. No, they can
Oh, they
understand
can.
Bengali because
Okay.
I
Yeah.
talk in Bengali
You
to them.
speak to me. I see. Yeah.
Certain times I have to explain to them.
Yeah.
So I found it remarkable that in 2019, when they saw it, two American girls born and brought up in America, not very little to do with Bengali culture as such.
Right.
They're
Right.
fascinated with Sonar Kella. And that
Yeah.
happened to me 40 years back when I was their age.
Right. Right. Right.
How universal Sonar Kella is. So going back to your question, yes, that was the first Soumitra Chatterjee film I saw.
Yeah. And I was mentioning to you earlier, I took my son to see Sonar Killa at the Telluride Film Festival. Again, I didn't want to force him to watch something like
Right.
Pathir Panchali, although I think it's a stunning, absolutely stunning
Right.
film. But I knew that he would connect to that because I mean, Sonar Killa actually has this. I mean, there are many films like that, and but
Right.
it has a quality which adults as well as children.
That's right.
Because I saw it the first time I was in college in Delhi, and I remember being scared. It has some really scary moments in it.
Yeah.
But discovering Soumitra Chatterjee as an actor, do you remember when that happened?
Oh, definitely. So when I was in college, I went to Presidency College, Kolkata, and I remember I saw a couple of Tapan Sinha films. I'm sure you know Wheelchair and Atonko. I don't know what is the English name for Atonko. Atonko means scare, where Soumitra plays a school teacher who was trying to protest against and something which he saw, a murder which he saw actually. That actually shook me. The films impacted me. And in college, that fascination from the stars of Amitabh Bachchan, Mithun Chakravarti, or Anil Kapoor, that changed to the directors. Because to be honest, if you asked me then, even now, if you ask me who is the director of Namak Halal, I think Prakash Mehra.
Prakash Mehra, yeah.
Now I know. But then, for example, I didn't know who directed Disco Dancer. B. Subhash, I know now.
Now you know.
Then we never bothered about who is making. So it is as if it's Mithun's film or Amitabh Bachchan's film. So in college, I got to appreciate the work of a director because it is ultimately the director's brainchild. And, Satyajit Ray and Soumitra happened concomitantly while I was at college. So then I saw the Opur trilogy, Opur Sanshar, of course, the Opur trilogy, but Soumitra was there just in Opur Sanshar.
Yeah, exactly.
And Charulata. Yeah. Those things then attracted me. And even a film which is not talked too much, Kapurush, in his Kapurush, Mahapurush, there was...
Kapurush was Madhavi.
Kapurush was Madhavi and Soumitra.
Lovely film.
Lovely film, though it is not acclaimed as one of his top 5 or whatever, So these films started attracting me. And, parallelly, I was seeing Soumitra's commercial films, which were being shown on TV. By that time, in the early 90s, he was not a hero anymore. But Koni was a film. I don't know whether you saw. He was a swimming teacher, Koni.
I want to see it. Actually, after I read your book, I went and said it's available on Amazon. So
that's right. So Koni was a film which was a big hit then. So the commercial films, and of course, they were directed by great film directors, Tapan Sinha, Torun Majumdar, another one, and so parallelly that intrigued me that he was a commercial star also, almost comparable to Uttam Kumar. But parallelly, he was doing such work, and not only Satyajit Ray. So while at college, I started getting intrigued by him as an actor. And also my parents had a tradition of taking us to theaters in Kolkata, in Academy of Fine Arts or Rabindra Sadan or Star Theatre. And Soumitra regularly performed in theater. He was probably the only star who, till a couple of years back, he was on stage, and he said that was an experience he would never leave ever. He was a stage artist initially to begin with, and we used to see his plays also. So it was an all-encompassing effect of Soumitra Chatterjee, which somehow hit me while I was at college, and then that love affair grew as I went into films and stuff. Yeah.
And then moving forward, I mean, you talk about the time you had contacted Gautam Ghosh,
right?
Because you wanted to become a filmmaker while you were also doing your PhD at Cornell. And it was, you were in
That was,
Calcutta.
before I went to Cornell also.
I see.
So I got into Cornell, but I knew that I will, by that time, Satyajit Ray, Aparna Sen, Tapan Sinha, their films. Ritu Porno was just started his career then. 19 April and Dahan happened. So somehow that, fascinated me much more. But I also got through to Cornell, which is one of the Ivy League schools. And I went to Gautam Ghosh and told him that I want to go to Pune Film Institute because I have to learn filmmaking also. And then he told me that, you have got to, are you kidding? Like, he was almost scolding me that, have you gone mad? You have got into Cornell for a PhD. You don't want to be an actor. You want to be a filmmaker. Why? You can join later also. So I was very demoralized and disheartened by what he had to say, and I then came back. So so the choice was between Pune Film Institute and going to Cornell to do a PhD. And a similar thing happened much later in Cornell, because my one of my advisors is Kaushik Basu, the famous economist, and he was the chief economic advisor of India. He was vice president of World Bank and Cornell professor. Same thing happened with Kaushik Da. When I was third year at Cornell, I was doing quite well in my study, but I was parallelly taking courses in the films department. And I told Kaushik Da that I want to leave economics. I am increasingly convinced that films is avenue. And he also said the same thing. Suman, you have third year in Cornell. It's a 5-year program. After you have a PhD from Cornell, film is such an uncertain profession. So please complete it. And I'm grateful to Kaushik Da, because any other professor would have kicked me out of the room and said that, get out of Cornell, if you are having second thoughts. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, as a side note, Kaushik's son, Karna also, I think in between his PhD or something, he went and worked with Suman Ghosh, right?
That's right. He was in Chokherbali. He was an observer. And many years later, Korno, then, I made films and whatever. So Korno wrote to Kaushik Da about the same thing. He was doing his PhD at MIT in economics. Korno said that films is fascinating. So Kaushik Da just forwarded me Korno's and said that, what I had told you many years back, please convey that to Korno.
My son also,
So Korno finished his MIT PhD after.
That's fascinating, and that's interesting about the Pune Film Institute, because there was a point I also wanted to join the Pune Film Institute, and my dad discouraged me. But coming back to Gautam Ghosh again, you happened to be on the sets of Dekha.
That's right. Decca,
sorry. And that's where you finally saw Soumitra Chatterjee for the first time, and you went and talked to him.
I didn't have the courage to talk to him, as I write. So, when you see, and so now I can say as a director, if I see Martin Scorsese in front of me, I don't think, or Satyajit Ray in front of me, I will not have the courage, because there are too many memories, too much of, I don't know, it shakes you, So when I saw Soumitra, it was like that. I saw on the set Soumitra Chatterjee was there. And, by that time, starting from Shonar Kella, I have now seen all the Ray films, non-Ray films, Mrinal Sen's films with Soumitra and everything. And so and not to forget his commercial films, which I always say that, wonderful commercial films.
Yeah.
By the way, I've mentioned a film. Have you seen Barnali, a film with Sharmila?
I've not seen Barnali. No.
Please see that. It's like a, Before Sunset or the Richard Linklater type of films.
I see.
I write in my book the description of that also.
I've seen Mayurakshi, of course. I love Atana.
Mayurakshi was much later. Barnali was like 60s when he was doing Satyajit Ray's Devi, and parallelly, all these films are happening. He did Barnali with Sharmila Tagore and Soumitra. So anyway, so all of that, was in front of me. And the first feeling, Aseem, I had that, this cannot be real, because, we try to think of such heroes as they are celluloid, creatures. They are in front of me. This is Soumitra Chatterjee. So I was taken aback, and but I was attending shoot and observing. So after many days, after a couple of weeks, I would say, I was there hanging around. He was also seeing a young guy hanging around. He doesn't know who I am. So then I got the courage to go and speak to him. Yeah.
But at what stage? I mean, I think in the book you mentioned at a certain stage, even before you cast him in your first film, you had started to meet him and and get to know him. And how did that connection happen? I mean, how did he accept you? I mean, and what's fascinating is that, he was nearly double your age. I
Right.
mean, in some ways,
Almost double, yes.
almost double. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, and it's one thing that you're his director, but you guys, you both formed a certain kind of bonding, and I'm sure he had that kind of bonding with other people also. I mean,
Sure.
you referred to him as your closest friend
Right.
in the book
Right.
also.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out at what stage that connection happened, and
Sure.
what was he seeking.
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure the conversations he had with you,
Sure.
and I've had many conversations with you, and it's
Right.
always very interesting.
Right.
But what
Right.
was he seeking?
So, while at Dekha, I had introductions to him, and then we formed the thing. And I think he was very fascinated. I can only say because we can't know the answer at all. He was, as I mentioned in the book, such a curious mind. He wanted to know about anything and everything in the world. And he was quite intrigued by the fact that I am a PhD in economics, and and of course we were talking about movies, and movies like in the sense starting from Griffith to Martin Scorsese or Richard Linklater. He was mad about movies, and in a very theoretical sense, not only about movies, about cricket, for example. We talked about Ranjit Singh ji to Virat Kohli. So he was always very curious. I think that intrigued him, that this guy is an economics PhD and he's wanting to do films and hanging around here from his course material. But I think what clinched it was Amartya Sen, because
I see.
by that time I did my first version of my Amartya Sen film documentary.
That took you a long time, the documentary, right?
Actually 2001 to I made it was then called Amartya Sen, a life re-examined. And then in 2016, I exactly remember, so I'm digressing a little bit, when the world was under Trump, when the world was under Modi, when the world, and everywhere. So, somehow I felt very disheartened of the way the world was going. And there are few people whom you can now hang on to. Amartya Sen is one, Soumitra Chatterjee was another. And, Aparna Sen is a very close friend of mine. Somehow I thought that, their ideology, their thought processes should be highlighted even more. And so I remember my brother lives in Boston. So when we were talking about our disgust of how the world is going, particularly Trump was like in peak form then, every day he was. So then he said that, see, you are a movie filmmaker and you have something to say. We have nothing. We are just corporate honchos. We have to go along with the tide. So then I thought about the idea, why not, interview Amartya Sen and Kaushik to bring them together after so many years and contemporize it with what is happening in the world. So the movie had a, strange progression. So there's one part, 2001, 2, and you will see in the movie, of course you have seen, it is written also 15 years later.
When I see.
Up, and so it was, those were joined together.
Because I'm sorry for cutting you, but you interviewed Amartya Sen's mother, for instance, and I'm sure she had passed
away
by the time.
That was 2001, 2, the first version. By that time, she was dead. So that is how that germinated, the final film, Argumentative India.
Right.
And so by that time I had shot the first film, Amartya Sen, a life re-examined, and Soumitra Chatterjee was like a child. He adores Amartya Sen's work in economics, and not only in economics, because Amartya Sen writes on culture, history, and everything. So so he found that connect also, and basically Amartya Sen and Adda, because we used to talk about anything and everything about literature and all. But it was not that close enough. To be very honest, I was still in awe of him. There was a distance, and I wouldn't call him a friend then. But it was slowly it was developing. Whenever I came from America to India in Kolkata, I went to his place, and so it developed gradually over the years before I made footsteps. Yeah.
And there comes a time when you have a premiere screening of the Argumentative Indian in Kolkata,
That's right.
And you're sitting in the theater between Soumitra
That's
Chatterjee
right.
and
Yeah.
Amartya Sen.
Yeah.
I mean, Sumit, you've been blessed, man. I'm like, so
Of
it
course,
must be
I will
so
always say
so
I mentioned,
special.
yeah.
Yeah. It
So
must be so special. One of the things, it's wonderful that you describe, for instance, how he prepared for the various roles, and, introduced him to some doctors, and for every role, he really becomes something, whether he read some books or whatever.
right.
Um, but the anecdotes you had, you mentioned cricket. I mean, there's a moment he talks about how he had met up with Tiger Pataudi and Sharmila, and so I think I loved. I mean, I loved every part of your book, really.
Mhm.
But the stories that Soumitra Chatterjee told you about how he would meet Uttam Kumar in this
Right.
hotel, in a corner
Right.
they would meet,
Great
and
Eastern Hotel. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and they bonded.
Right.
So talk to us about some of those stories, because I think people would love to hear that, and I want people to really get the book for that,
Right.
for
Right.
many many reasons,
Sure.
but we really enjoy
So,
that.
I'm first of all grateful for Sharmila Tagore for writing the foreword for this,
Yes, yes, yes,
because she was his first, or Sharmila Tagore's also first film.
and his first film
Soumitra
also,
Kaku's also first film in Opu
Operation
Shankar.
Shah.
And oftentimes in our addas, Sharmila Tagore came because they were very fond of each other. But of
Right.
course, she lives in Delhi, he is in Kolkata, and he's busy with work. She was busy. But some memorable instances he had narrated to me about Tiger Pataudi and Sharmila
Mm,
Tagore and their addas together. And so Pataudi used to stay in Grand Hotel, and they used to
mm,
have these addas in Grand Hotel, the three of them.
mm, mm.
And I remember once he had said that till 4 a.m. In the morning, they were partying together, with their drinks. And, apparently Pataudi and Sharmila, they are also, people with myriad interests. So they used to
And and
talk.
and Patadi had to play next day the Ranji Trophy or something, right?
Next day,
I
there
think
was a match in Eden Gardens. He was playing
you're right
Ranji
at the
Trophy, and
movie.
all Bengalis know about a song called Khirki Theke Singho Duar. It was a big commercial hit of Soumitra Kaku. And he was supposed to shoot that very important song next day. And till 4 a.m. they were partying. And in the morning, Pataudi goes to play the Ranji Trophy. He scored a century. And Soumitra
Right.
Kaku, that song became a cult song in
Yeah.
Bengal. And so I used to ask him that, what did you all talk about, and then they used to talk. And Pataudi was very interested in politics and culture, and of course cricket. And I have this wonderful story which Soumitra Kaku narrated about Collie Smith, the great
Yeah.
West Indian cricketer, and Sobers. So these are just, honestly, I wish I always had a tape recorder with me, or my phone recording was on when I was having these addas. So, this story, I don't think much people know also, that Colin Smith was such a great West Indian cricketer who was, presumed to be more talented than Gary Sobers. And Gary Sobers was driving the car when
the accident happened.
faced an accident in England. And it was very cinematic also. So this story, Tiger Pataudi told Soumitra Kaku that Sobers didn't know how to face Colin Smith's mother when going back to Barbados, and then he promised his mother that Mama, they used to say Mama, and Soumitra Kaku used to enact as if, he's enacting the role, that I promise that from now on I will play 2 innings, one for me and one for your son.
Wow.
And this was early on in Sobers' career. And then Sobers became one of the acclaimed,
Right.
So these are some stories, which I remembered I wrote in this book, with Pataudi, and not only Pataudi, about funny incidents with Satyajit Ray and, Uttam Kumar, as you said, they used to hang out together in Great Eastern Hotel, the two biggest stars. Like, think of Amitabh Bachchan and Rajesh Khanna having drinks together in the hotel.
No, Shashi Kapoor and Amitabh Bachchan.
Shashi Kapoor.
They would
By
go
the way,
dancing.
Shashi Kapoor, since you have a book on Shashi Kapoor, wonderful book, I hope we can come to Irfan Khan's book. And I mention about Irfan Khan also.
Yes.
My addas. He used to, he used to say that I'm jealous of Irfan Khan's talent, and just the thing. And he called Irfan after seeing
After
Lunchbox.
Lunchbox, yes.
So about Shashi Kapoor, I didn't know that, in Kali Yuga, I think, Soumitra
Kalyog,
was offered
yes.
the
Yeah.
role, which Soumitra couldn't do
I think
during
he
that
was unwell at that time or something. 'Cause
unwell,
I write that
or
in my book also. Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
But about Shashi Kapoor, he had always to say that probably the most refined gentleman he has seen in his life. Soumitra always said that. And of course, we all know about that famous photograph in Berlin.
Yes, in
Jennifer
Berlin.
Kapoor was there, Shashi Kapoor, and two of the most handsome people in Indian cinema, probably Soumitra and Shashi Kapoor together in their sunglasses and all. So I'm sorry, I'm digressing from what
Yeah,
you're.
yeah.
It's like
No,
more.
but that photograph, actually, even I'm digressing. That photograph is very special because 1965, Shakespeare Wala and Charulata were in competition, and
Oh,
I've actually even told Satyajit Ray won the Silver Bear for the best director,
right.
while Madhur Jaffrey won the Silver Bear for the best actress. And I actually remember telling Madhur that, I mean, although you were wonderful, but it must have been a really tough competition because you were competing with Madhuri Mukherjee, who I thought was absolutely
Right.
stunning in
Right.
Charulata. Yeah, so they were all there, and Jennifer is also in that photograph, and I think
Yeah.
Felicity Kendall, they were all in those photographs.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. And many other anecdotes. I mean, of course, you bring in Mithun Chakravarti also. There's a lovely moment when you discuss about in the Bose family, when there's an electricity goes off, and you saw Aparna Sen sitting and
That's right.
holding a phone light with him.
That's right.
You said you took that picture. I hope you. I only read the PDF of your book, but I hope is the picture going to be in the book? I
Yes,
hope.
it is there in the book. I just
Yeah.
couldn't control myself. And, when Soumitra Kapoor, just before a scene is going to start, he goes into a different zone with the script. And, like a child, he still, tries to think about it and whatever. So it's an intense concentration period. And suddenly the lights go off during Boshu Poribar. And he was quite frustrated. He initially thought that somebody did some mistake or whatever. He said that, Kyolo, like, what happened? And then our production guy said that the generator, it was malfunctioning generator, so he had nothing to do. And, so somebody lit a lighter so that it's not completely dark. And we could sense the, angst and the frustration in Soumitra Kapoor, because he was in a different zone altogether, preparing for his scene.
Right.
And then he, so then Reena Devi, called Aparna Sen. Aparna Sen noticed that, and she immediately took out her phone and put on the torchlight of the phone, and then said that, "Tumi bosho, like, why don't you sit? I'm holding the torchlight." And that photo is there in the book also, where she's holding the torchlight and he's preparing. All darkness everywhere. There's a torchlight with Aparna Sen, and he's preparing his dialogue. So I was, roaming around, and then I suddenly saw that image, and I didn't know whether it will come out, because in my phone, I took out my phone and clicked the picture.
You had to
record. They also didn't know. So it came out wonderfully, actually. So then after that, I showed it to them,
I mean, they did a lot of films. Of course, Samapti was the first time Aparna Sen acted, but I love that film that Aparna Sen directed with
Paromita Ragdin.
Paramita, yeah, because I think Soumitra Chatterjee's role is very interesting. How he's like, he's obviously in love with her. He drops her practically every afternoon, and she's busy with the household and everything else, and knowing what the connection. I think it's a lovely film.
Again, in the last, the end of the book, when I mentioned 10 best films of mine apart from this, so Paromita Ragdin is there. Though it is technically a guest appearance in Paromita Ragdin, but what I mention is that probably one of the best guest appearances in Indian cinema, where he comes, and that relationship between Aparna Sen and Soumitra Chatterjee in that film, as you rightly pointed out, was so nebulous. It was not a flame, to call it, he was her flame in, it's demeaning almost. There was so much of respect. He used to come in the afternoon, sit there, have some paesh. Paesh is a Bengali dish, sweet dish. And just a chai. And Aparna Sen's daughter-in-law, played by Rituparna Sengupta,
Yeah.
she could understand the connection, the
Right,
relationship
right,
between
right.
Soumitra. So it was wonderfully, the matra, as I say, of playing the character was so beautifully played.
Yeah, yeah.
That reticence of coming to the house, other people are not looking it in a right way. And there's a scene when Aparna Sen's husband passes away, and she goes and hugs Soumitra Chatterjee. And so there was so much of dignity in even that hug, and so much of it transpires. And just imagine the delicate moment where this is her so-called lover, or whatever you call, and her husband passed away,
Right.
and taking solace in his arms was wonderful. That particular scene. Yeah.
There's something you write in the book later. Peace Haven, in any case, is about three men. One friend has passed away, and then they're looking for the place where they would be cremated or something. So there's the whole death issue comes up there also.
Right.
But something you write in the book towards the end, I think, where you talk about how you would started imagining that you would shoot a film or a scene with Soumitra Chatterjee, where his character is dying, and then Soumitra Chatterjee himself might just die.
Right.
And he also found it very interesting.
That's right.
First of all, I'm really impressed that even though, as much as you knew him very well, to tell a man who is approaching death in any case,
Absolutely,
that you want to film his death. That must have taken so much courage from you to do that.
Yeah, and
talk to us about that. Tell us about that.
I had a so-called a bizarre thought about because he previously I knew that he was so nonchalant about death. He used to mock death, and which is his character in P7 also. He used to mock death until the last scene when he emotionally breaks down. And that incident, which I write in detail in the book, about finding sorbitrate in the kitchen, which saved his life.
The
and
medicine,
the outside world doesn't know also. And he's not a person who will, tell the outside world about that he was going to die, and we saw after his death what repercussions happened, BBC, to New York Times, to all over India, the, pouring of grief of things like that. And I knew that this was an incident nobody knew in this world except me. And because I had read it in a small newspaper article in Anandabajar Putrika, that he was admitted to hospital because he was having some heart problems. And when I went and asked him, the first thing is, I was going to die. He said it like this: I was going to die, like an excited person. And then he narrated that incident to me that evening. What happened was that, he had a heart attack and he couldn't find the sorbitrate. He was alone in the house, and it was raining in Kolkata incessantly. The ambulance couldn't come, and he could see that he is dying. Suddenly the sorbitrate happened, and so he told me he found the sorbitrate in the kitchen, and he told me this incident. And after that, I was thinking that, wow, it was such a chance event. And this, happened 10 years back. So Moyurakki wouldn't have happened after that. So many films, Boshu Poribar, P7 wouldn't have happened. And, so many other films wouldn't have happened, which Bala Sheshe and other very big. So his and this was just a chance event of how frivolous Soumitra's life was, or how it was such delicately balanced then. Just a chance event saved his life. So then, I thought about, this bizarre idea came to me. If he can act his death, how well he can act his death. And which, in a sense, in P7, I had told him before. Remember that I write in the book also, the night before he shot the last scene, he asked me that why is he crying? And then I told him about my interpretation, but I told him that, this is my interpretation. You just keep your mind blank when that scene happens. We will have the camera on. Try to think about the moment you're dying and, enact it. And that scene happened like that. So it was... And, so when I told my some close friends, or I knew one Kakima, an auntie of his generation, I told her, and she was furious on me that, Soumitra Chatterjee is such a, he's a revered person in Bengal, and you are planning to shoot his real death. How mean you can be. And she blasted me. I was quiet. I can understand that it might be so cruel at one point, But to be honest, Aseem, I was sure that this would have been an artistic experiment which has never been done before, where I will shoot his death, and also I will shoot him enacting his death. He will act his death, and the final film will be an edited version of his actual death and his enactment of the death. So I, of course, after that response from that auntie and some other people also, not so vehemently as that auntie, they said that, to have this idea in your mind is quite mean, and whatever. My brother also said that, no, you shouldn't mention it to Soumitra Chatterjee also. This is unbelievable to say someone that I'll shoot your death while you're dying, And then I thought, I gathered enough courage and whatever, that I discuss everything with Soumitra Kaku. I call him my closest friend, my philosopher guide, and I know that he will understand from where I am coming. I'm not, planning to exploit his death by any means. It is an experiment I want to see. That is the biggest experiment in cinema, that some Soumitra Chatterjee his death. So I told him, and of course, before telling him, I told him that I'm very, very reluctant and I don't know how you will react and blah, blah, blah. He said that, there's no such, gap between us now. But still, of course, this is something which was very different. And he listened to it, and his first thing was, what a brilliant idea, Suman.
Wow.
And then we really planned off, but then I went to shoot my next film, my Hindi film Aadhaar, and I was out of Kolkata. And so that never happened, that experiment. But we used to regularly talk about, so he gave me some material, because he doesn't have an autobiography, Soumitra, but he had done a play where it was like an Atmakatha in that play. So he gave me that book to read. So we were preparing to shoot that, by the way. And but we never shot that part where he will enact that same night. So basically my idea was, I will continue his process where he doesn't find the sorbitate in the kitchen and he dies. So he will act it out. And then when it happened last year, November 15, 2020, I will shoot, of course, with the permission of his family and whatever, after he dies. And so there will be a camera in the nursing home. That was what I planned, like a CCTV camera. So I can understand, even telling this, that, some people will think how bizarre and cruel that might be. So I apologize to people whom I hurt in the process.
No, but it's interesting. And the fact that you actually discussed it with him and he was quite intrigued by it.
Open to it,
Open to it and all. One of the things that I think is remarkable about this gentleman, Soumitra Chatterjee, and I get that sense a lot more from your book, is that how he appreciated other actors. I mean, he talks so much about Balraj Sahni and Nasiruddin Shah and Om Puri. And, we could come to the Irfan thing also. But there's a scene that you mentioned that your first film, when you were shooting, his job was over for the day, but he sat at the back just to look at Soumitra Chatterjee. So tell us about that. I think people would love to hear that.
So when Soumitra Chatterjee was shooting for any of the films in Bengal, of course, he just shot for Bengali films. There is a precise protocol, and particularly in his last years when he was not keeping well. And I mentioned also, like, after, at least in my sets for sure, after
he would take a nap.
He used to take a nap of half an hour or something like that. In one of those Aram Kedara in Bengal, we used to, in India, remember, we had these, our grandfathers have these made of nylon, which stretched like this, so you could lie down like that. So we had something like that. If there was a bed on shoot, then of course in the bed. So he used to shoot for 4 hours exactly. So everything in the shoot was arranged according to his schedule. All directors, not only me, and so he used to come and everything was ready. His shots would have been taken earlier and then he would leave. And particularly in the last 3-4 years when he was quite sick, in Podokep happened much earlier. Still, that decorum was maintained when Soumitra was shooting. And one day we saw that his it is called shift. His shift for the day was over.
Yes.
And he was sitting there in the corner. And I was furious on my assistants that didn't they inform Soumitra Chatterjee that, so his car was ready, everything ready. And it is a couple of hours after his schedule. And he's sitting there in the corner, so I told my assistant, what did you do? He's sitting there. So he Abhijit Baptan, I call. Abhijit said that, no, of course I told him, his staff, everything, that he can go now. And, he said that he will stay. So then I went to Soumitra and said that, Soumitra, your shoot is over. Like, you don't have any more scenes today. Then he said that, I'm watching Soumitra Chatterjee. And, Soumitra Chatterjee is an actress. I don't think anyone outside Bengal has seen her because unfortunately she has not worked with the great so-called Mrinal Sen, Hrithik Ghatak, or even Tapan Sinha, as far as I remember. But she is by far, one of the best actresses India has produced. But she didn't get that acknowledgement outside Bengal. So he was waiting there for a couple of hours to watch Soumitra Chatterjee act. And then his first reaction was, look at her comic timing. So there was a scene with Nandita Das and, Soumitra Chatterjee, where Nandita comes from work and finds Soumitra crying. Soumitra was their housemaid, house help, not maid, house help actually. And I mentioned in the book, it was very much inspired by, you remember Wild Strawberries? There was this lady who was with Victor Straham's character.
Right.
And so it's much more elevated than, we shouldn't call maid. It was almost a family member.
Like a family man,
Yeah, so she was crying when Nandita comes back. And Nandita said, what happened, Mashi? Mashi, said.
Yeah.
And basically she was crying, seeing a very emotional soap opera going on television. And she played with that, and Soumitra was waiting to see how she enacts that scene. And she was fascinated with that. The humor which she brings out, where she was crying and Nandita said, what happened, Mashi? What happened? Did, father tell you something, scold you or whatever? Then she says that, that thing, what that thing? And then she points out to the television where a very, drama like Sas Bika Bhi Bahu or something like that in the Bengali corresponding thing was going. So he was sitting there watching Soumitra Chatterjee enact. And this is not necessarily just with Soumitra Chatterjee, as I told you, with Irfan, or Manoj Bajpayee, the younger crops. Nawaz, he was a wild fan of them, and he used to regret, honestly, that he was so old now that he cannot play these roles which these youngsters are. And to be honest, Aseem, I think a lot of film directors are experimenting with these actors in new forms and genres, which even a person like Soumitra Kaku did not interact, did not get the opportunity. Of course, he never went out of Bengal, but I'm sure he felt that, some sort of regret seeing this. And he used to say that I'm jealous of Irfan's acting talent. He's such nuanced. And I mentioned in the book, he used to compare him with Balraj Sahni, Nasir.
Right.
That tradition of acting talent.
Yeah. Well, when I went to see him, I mean, it was a very short visit, but
you presented the book also, I think.
I presented the book, the Irfan book I wrote, but then the moment I came out, when he was saying goodbye to me, he said, tell Irfan that I'm a fan of his. And this was in January of 2020, and
few months later.
A few months later. So I wasn't even able to contact Irfan, and a few months later, Irfan passed away. But it's also, in your book, there's an interesting point when he tells you that he didn't think Suchitra Sen was a good actress.
That's right. And see, one thing I liked about Soumitra Kaku was that he was quite forthright in his assessments. So he said that, of course, I cannot always tell the truth point blank because, it doesn't, shobha nahi deta hai, given his teacher and everything, but I will never lie, So if someone point blank asks me about Suchitra Sen, I cannot tell that, she's comparable to, forget Shabana Azmi, and he meant, and these are his own words I'm saying, but, I cannot say he was a big fan of course, Smita, Shabana, the genre of actors. So I cannot tell that Suchitra Sen was comparable to Soumitra Chatterjee or Shabana Azmi or Smita Patil. No, like she was an extremely attractive lady. She had a panache which no one had in Bengali films or even Indian films. But I cannot say that she was a good actress, and she was both. And I think not only to my question, I think toward later in his life, he was asked publicly in an interview also about this,
Right.
about Suchitra Sen, which a lot of Bengalis took offense, because Suchitra Sen is also an icon which Bengalis would not like to tamper even a little bit.
Like Uttam
But
Kumar.
Soumitra was very, very honest about, anything which did not like him. He would be quite forthright about that.
Yeah, Nasir is like that. Nasir is very openly about that also.
Which
He
one?
doesn't like
Nasir,
Nasiruddin Shah.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's why they are so good friends,
Right. There's this one of the last questions I wanted to ask. Toward the beginning of the book, you ask him about his wife and his family and how he had not spent too much time with his wife or something. In the passing, he mentions, did he have affairs? Did he mention that there was something and his wife? He said, but then we all do it or something. There's some reference to that, right?
See, again, this is such a taboo subject in Bengal.
Yeah.
So nobody will have the guts to ask Soumitra Chatterjee of any of his affair or some, not affair maybe, but some kind of romantic involvement
Right.
he had with any actress or something. So, but my question was more, broader when I asked him. I remember I was having an adda in Saturday Club where we also had our adda.
Yes, when I met you also. Yes.
So then, and I was, because Kakima passed away also earlier this year. And I was very close to Kakima, and she was also a fascinating lady. And, my broader question was, and an artist, whether he's an actor or a director or whatever, whether he or she can be a good family member also, whether it is possible at all to be a good family member. Good family member, not necessarily being a very adorable husband or adorable father or whatever, but there are certain responsibilities. To be honest, probably I was questioning myself also. A lot of the questions which I had, Aseem, I asked him. And because I live in the US, I make films here. I have a family in Miami. So I also go through a lot to, I miss my daughter so much when I'm here. So it was a larger conversation based on, family and our profession. And, I was, telling him that I'm missing my daughter so much that it is becoming very difficult. How much can call or nowadays video conference or whatever you can do, but it's... So he advised me a very good thing, that Suman, first of all, what you are doing, I don't think anybody has done, and you have been doing this for 15 years. So I cannot say that you are straddling or, trying out different. So you have convincingly plotted your journey for 15 years.
And you have 2 careers. Really.
2 careers. You're a full-time academic in the US. It's not a casual job. So he said that when you are in Kolkata making a film, or in Bombay, when, I think you have to be selfish in a sense, cut your family off completely. Because otherwise, you are thinking about a movie and you're thinking about your daughters or your wife. You will be na ghar ka na ghat ka, as they say. You will be in 2 worlds, and you will not be a good father, not be a good husband, nothing. Your quality of films will drop. So I know that your children are at such an adorable age, you're feeling like this, but somehow you have to do this. But remember, his caveat was, when you go back to the US, when you are with your family, then don't continuously talk to your film people, or even to me, Kaku, what are you doing? So then completely give your attention, and you have done this successfully for so many years. Right. You have this compartmentalization, but don't cheat either your family or your work. So we were having that discussion. So then I asked him that, from Kakima, I have felt that oftentimes, you have not been as a good family member yourself. So there are 2 aspects. He took that question in for, first of all, whether I'm questioning his role as a father in life, right, and as a husband. So as a father, he vehemently denied. he said that you can ask Paulomi and Bubu, his sons, Shogato is his good name. Of course, I cannot be a normal father because I was going out for shoots. But I have tried. If they are my life, I can say nothing even more than acting or my career or cinema or whatever. They are my life. So I have no doubt. And about your Kakima, he talked about, I am a moderately presentable person, and he used exactly that words. So of course I have had some infatuations and romantic involvements, but I don't think but then he made fun of it, that a lot of it in Kakima's mind also. But remember, Aseem, to be honest, I can say to you that I have not written everything in the book which I know, and the conversations I have hidden, because he is a father figure to me. So for example, when you or me or anyone wants to portray a father figure, and that's why I write in the introduction also, this is not an analysis of his life or work at all. I am biased in this book, but what I want to convey is a person in close proximity. And my larger purpose was to his work. So it should be a manual for, aspiring actors also, or actors also. It's not just my experience, but through that, I want to bring out the functionings of an actor, how he operates as such an internationally renowned actor. So going back to that conversation, of course, he said certain other things which I thought that it will. So I always respected the fact that this I don't want.
With the boundary, basically, yeah. But that probably is my final question. What I'm really impressed is all of this. The whole book has come from your memory. There's a section where you actually have you're quoting him and yourself. I mean, did you tape record that particular adda?
No.
And so all of this has come from your memory.
That's right. So, the addas with him were one of my most cherished things. I never tape record an adda. So it was like a filmmaker in me who is writing a script of a typical adda of Soumitra Chatterjee. So all of those are real life incidents from my memory, but I wrote it in the way of a script of an adda, where the reader will feel like they are eavesdropping in an adda with Soumitra Chatterjee and me. Because a lot of people have told me, oh, I wish I could be a fly on the wall and be when he's talking so openly, because he was in Bengal, he was like a legend, a cult figure and all. He never liked that. He hated it. And very genuinely, I know, because there was no one he could talk to normally. Everybody was talking to Soumitra Chatterjee, the great legend and whatever he is. So I could feel that, angst in him that nobody could. So when I used to tell my friends or family about, the addas that I had with him, a lot of people said that I wish I could be there in an adda silently. Of course, if somebody third person is there, he would not open up like that.
Yeah, he would not open up like he would. He felt very comfortable.
So I wanted to give the readers a glimpse of that fly on the wall feeling through that chapter.
All the other chapters also, even when you're describing how he was preparing the roles or what he was like on every film of his, it's all come from your memory, which is really remarkable. I mean, you spent a year. I mean, he passed away about exactly.
I had to inculcate, because when I'm working with him in any film, be it P7 or Boshu Porivar or whatever it is, I was going through the process, but of course I had no plans of writing it down or later. I wish I wrote it down that, or as a diary like that, what I was doing. But then while writing the book, thanks to Om Books who published it, and the editor Shantanu who poked me in thinking like, and then what did you do? Then I was thinking, this happened later. I took that.
It comes back.
I met with that doctor, international renowned neurosurgeon, and that was my thing. So it was good that was an exercise for me also to jot down something, and which I can replicate with other actors that I work in future also.
Well, Suman, congratulations. It's a fascinating book, and we can keep talking about it. The book is actually, it's officially out in January or in December? January.
Early January, it's going to come out.
And so I know it'll be available in bookstores in India, but it'll also be available on Amazon in the US
in the US,
yeah.
all over the world. Yeah,
all over the world, all the Amazon EU countries also. So congratulations, really, and I really enjoyed this conversation. And I've thanked you many times, but because of you, I got to meet Soumitra Chatterjee. That was a very special moment for me in my life. So thanks very much. I don't know
because this was, as I told you, my first literary event, because I have never written books or anything. I've been to film festivals and all, and glad that a person who has pampered my filmmaking journey so much through as a writer or as your role as the director of IAAC.
Yeah, we programmed many
festival.
Yeah.
So glad that the Aseem Chhabra moderated my session.
This is about your segment.
And IAAC.
No, I really wanted to do that. I mean, between just you and your films and I knew this book is fascinating. So I wanted to read the book. So I said, okay, I raised my hand. I'll do the conversation with Suman Ghosh. I get to read the book also. I think so. Thank you very much on behalf of IAAC and also on behalf of New York Indian Film Festival. You actually mentioned the festival also.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.